we'll discuss the news of the weekend, so to speak, which it was treated as breaking news, but it was more of an inevitability. Bryce Underwood is Michigan's starting quarterback. We know that really wasn't much of a competition just based on Mikey Keene was hurt in the spring. Really is still kind of working himself back to the mix to be, in the 2 deep, the 3 deep on the depth chart. I think he will get there at some point. But Bryce Underwood, 2025's number 1 overall recruit, a 5-star plus prospect over at On3, a guy that you make the type of NIL investment in him that they did. And it seemed inevitable, but they wanted him to go out and earn it. And maybe even if it was by default, you certainly want to hear that he's looked the part more than he hasn't. And by all accounts, this is a guy who's extremely talented, and he is the guy now. He was a wire-to-wire starter in high school. He went 50-4. He won a couple state titles, made a couple more runs through the playoffs. Now he has a chance to be a wire-to-wire starter in his college career.
Yeah, and I really have no concerns about his ability. And I understand he's a freshman. And as we've been saying, there are going to be some mistakes. There have been some mistakes in practice, but as Sharon Moore said today, we're going to ride with him, right? We're going to coach it out of him and ride with him. And somebody even asked, is there a chance if he doesn't play well that Jaden Davis is going to go in there, which I thought was kind of laughable. There's no chance that's going to happen. They are going to stick with Bryce Underwood. He's going to be their guy. This isn't like last year when you had a question mark. This guy is the real deal. Now, my biggest concern is, are they going to get the blocking for him up front? Is he going to have the offensive line to protect him? I'd feel much better, for example, if he was being thrown into the mix like in 2020 or 2004, rather, when you had that outstanding wide receiver trio. You had Mike Hart back there pass blocking, and you had a really solid offensive line. There's still a lot of question marks. So a lot more is going to fall on his shoulders than it did Chad Henne back in 2004. But to me, there's no question that he's going to be great in time. We'll just see how quickly he gets there.
Yeah, there's no question. And a lot, like you said, things around him need to be good. You want him to not have to get hit from his blind side and not have to run around too much and not being put in too many 3rd and long situations and things like that. But, I mean, clearly the best quarterback for this team. I think he would have won the job regardless of who was healthy. But early in the season, he's going to have to stay healthy. He's going to have to be able to be in position to be in the football game because they don't have a ton of depth there right now. But, yeah, I mean, this was going to happen. I mean, Sharon Moore was asked today when he thought it was possible that Bryce Underwood could be the starter. He said about halfway through camp, and maybe it was the first time that they were in the big house for a scrimmage. I mean, you had ideas of this for months and months and months, and he started to see the signs, I think, right away in camp, first scrimmage, whatever it was, that this guy's the real deal and legitimately, potentially one of the better quarterbacks in the conference right away, things like that. That's more what I read that as. I think he wanted to, kind of give the impression that this was, a competition that anyone could have won. But with the level of talent he has, it's hard for just anyone to win it. So, that speaks to how good he is. But he's going to be really good right away, and it is going to be really fun if this thing picks up some steam early on in the season because he's going to get better throughout the year. If he stays healthy, the experience is going to be invaluable. So, good start, win some games early, and I think you could pick up a lot of momentum.
The big concern, right, AB, is what happens if he goes down, and you hate to even mention that, and it's not likely, obviously, you never know, but man, behind them, you're in a position that you were in last year, right, if something were to happen to him.
Yeah, it's better because I think that, even if Mikey Keene is still not all the way back, I mean, he's a guy that, the floor for what he break, if he's on the field is much higher than I think anything they had out there last year. I think that history will look back on that quarterback room last year and you'll wonder how a program the caliber of Michigan's ever let it get that bad. What I was going to say about Bryce is this isn't the same as when like McCarthy won the job and you had an entrenched Cade McNamara that seemed had performed all right, but then McCarthy just kind of took the job. Let's be honest here, like the roadmap was pretty Bryce Underwood friendly. When you bring in a guy, Mikey Keene, who hasn't played at the Power 4 level, Jaden Davis couldn't get on the field last year. Of all years, that's maybe as damning a sign as anything. Jake Garcia just got here. Davis worn at a torn ACL. So, like, the path was there for him right away. Now, what helps that is he's a guy that has a chance to be, generational. I think that's a word that gets a little bit overused now, and I've used it at times, so I'm guilty of it. But this is really kind of a once in a decade type of talent that they have there. I think I could be wrong. The last number 1 overall recruit at quarterback was Trevor Lawrence, or was there a guy in between there? Clayton, you might know that.
Maybe Quinn Ewers, but I think it depends on the site. I mean, I don't know that anyone was this much of a unanimous pick. But.
Right. So, like, this is a guy that is, I won't say a different level of quarterback recruit, but the floor is incredibly high there. He's a guy, like I said before, he's the things that I do think translate from high school to college is, one, have you started 3 to 4 years and did you win a lot of games? He did. They went 50-4. And the completion percentage. He's a guy who's completed 70% of his passes in high school. So I think he's extremely ready. Now, we might want to tap the brakes on someone even today in the press conference where, the Heisman talk there's no Heisman talk around him. This year is entirely about getting him comfortable. If you can show even what a guy like DJ Lagway at Florida last year had some struggles, but still, he comes into this year as one of the, some people think could be a top 5 quarterback in the country. There are going to be mistakes. We've heard that there at times he's had, interceptions or pick 6 in camp, and you're going to have to ride through that. And that's something that, we'll call it what it is too. On the road in one of these first 6 games, that could cost them a football game. But I think that the roadmap is there for them, not only to peel back the layers of what he can do, but also with that schedule, the back half where you play 4 of the worst teams in the Big Ten. That's going to be a great launching off point for him to be. I think, maybe late November is kind of his coming out party, and maybe it's sooner than that. He has the talent for that to happen.
Yeah, and you hope that in game 1, playing against a bad New Mexico team, that he comes out and sets the world on fire. And obviously the biggest test is going to be Oklahoma on the 6th of September. So he's going to go down there. That defense is legit. I think that's a tough place to play. You're going to have the crowd noise, the night game, everything else. And we're going to see exactly how much they trust him and that offensive line. Are they going to rely heavily on their defense and their running game? That's going to be my guess, and maybe turn him loose on a couple of play action passes. And how much are we going to see of the RPOs? That's something that I'm going to be watching too. That's one way to kind of negate a sketchy line, or at least give them some help, right? We'll see. But there's no question in my mind that we are going to see an outstanding quarterback at some point in Michigan history here, compared to some of the greats, as long as they protect him. I remember what happened to Devin Gardner, and it scares me a little bit just because he didn't have the blocking up front. And I really thought he could have been a really good quarterback here had they had better line play. They did him a disservice. I don't think that's going to be anywhere close to what we see this year, but there are still some question marks, guys. And that right guard position, for example, and left tackle with Evan Link, we still have some major question marks. And everybody that we've spoken with off the record in that building says, yeah, I like this team. A lot of it depends on the offensive line, but they all love Bryce Underwood. Again, one who's been here for 30 plus years, said he is the best true freshman quarterback that he's ever seen at Michigan. That includes Drew Henson, that includes Chad Henne, guys like that. So I can't wait to see this guy in action.
Yeah, and he's just different than, I think he's better than Gardner. I think he's better than all those other guys were. And I'm willing to say, Anthony, that he is on another level as a quarterback recruit. And I'm willing to also say there probably is going to be, if they go down and beat Oklahoma in week 2, I wouldn't be surprised at all if there are people talking about the Heisman. I don't know how realistic it would be, but that talk's going to come. I think it kind of ebbs and flows throughout the season. And we had Heisman talk around here when there was Tate Forcier running around, throwing on the run all over the place.
After the Notre Dame game
in the September Heisman was presented. I think they gave it to him after that September of 2009. So that talk's going to come. How's he going to handle it? How's he going to handle the hype? How are his teammates going to? And that stuff could come. And I think it's all good things. If people are talking about that, it's a good thing. The talk wasn't the reason why Forcier and that team fizzled out. They were always going to fizzle out. But, you can handle it better than other guys could. And it seems like Bryce Underwood is just, everyone says mature beyond his years. It's just true. Like, you watch him on BTN, the interviews, and, we've interviewed him a couple times, and you just see him interact and the way people talk about him. It is hard to believe he turned 18 last Tuesday. I was doing dumb stuff. I was an idiot when I was that age, and so were a lot of people listening out there, even though some of us, may not. It does pain us a little bit to admit it, but he's not.
Some of us were doing stuff like that last week.
Yeah. You should have seen me Saturday at the wedding I was at last week. It was ridiculous. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. It almost feels too good to be true that you have a talent like this, but he wanted to go to Michigan since he was a kid. He ends up at Michigan, and now number 19 will run out of that Eastern tunnel and be Michigan's starting quarterback. It's going to be a cool moment.
Yeah, I realize I contradict myself when I say he's a once in a every decade prospect and say, oh, well, is he that level of guy? Like, I understand that's how that came across. So apologies for that. I guess what we'll end with on Bryce is we set the expectation now. Like, what do we expect to see from him this year? What's a good year for him? If you even want to throw a stat projection out there, I guess I'll start with that. I mean, if he's a guy that we've heard people say that he's kind of on par with where JJ was when he started as a sophomore. So that was a year where he threw 2,700 yards. He completed a little under 65% of his passes. He had 22 touchdowns and the 5 interceptions. I can see similar numbers, except I think that the interception number might be a little bit higher. I wouldn't be surprised if he threw 10 or 11 picks this year and then it was maybe front loaded in the first half of this schedule. But where are you guys at with what is, because there's so many unknowns too. The offensive line, which we'll talk about in a second. Wide receiver, we'll talk about that in a second. From an infrastructure standpoint, like anyone expecting him, when we say he's maybe the best college quarterback to enter as a freshman since Trevor Lawrence. We've talked about this before too, where Trevor Lawrence was dropped onto a national title contender. He's not, I don't expect him to put up those type of numbers and for the team to have that type of success. But what does a good first year look like for Bryce Underwood?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. With a 10 interception mark, maybe, some early on, and 2,500 yards potentially. And depends on, again, how much they let him throw. We do know Chip Lindsey wants to throw a little bit more. And so we'll see how that plays out. As people have told us, they're not going to be running into stacked lines on every 3rd and 3. So the ball's going to be in his hands a little bit more. So how much are they going to let him run? That's another question mark. Remember when Sharon told us at Big Ten Media Day, you better have 2 quarterbacks if you're going to run your quarterback. And I don't think they really do at this point. So I think they may throw it a little bit more with him. So I'm there. 7. Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
I was just going to say, if we want to compare it to that JJ year from 2022.
Yep.
70 rushes for 360 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and maybe a little more than that. So, and some of those are going to be scrambles too, right? Depending, again, on how the offensive line holds up and how the receivers do. There are question marks there. Donovan McCulley is your number 1. He's your clear number 1. Samaj Morgan 2. Channing Goodwin 3. Good for him. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute. But to me, I think you're absolutely right. I think 17, 18 touchdowns, 10 picks or something like that. And then 2,500 yards. So we'll see. And again, a lot of it depends on that offensive line. So, but there'll be some learning moments, as Sharon Moore said. And as we've said all along, it's just going to happen with a freshman quarterback, and they're going to be some ups and downs. But he's talented enough that he's going to get his numbers. And I think they're going to give him ample opportunity. Even though they may play to the running game and the defense early on, he's going to get ample opportunity to throw the ball as well.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because early in the year, you don't have the quarterback depth. But if you get Mikey Keene fully back and Davis Warren there, then it actually looks okay. And I think that maybe they will run some more designed runs for him as the year goes on, although you have a lot of big games early. So a lot of it depends on the injury timeline of those 2 guys, especially Keene. And yeah, it's hard to project stats, especially stat totals throughout a season when you don't know how many games they're going to play and all these different things. But I think J.D. Pickell said it really well when he was on our show a few weeks ago. If he scores 30 touchdowns and whatever combination it is of passing and rushing, then Michigan's going to be a really good team, and he's going to have a really good season. So somewhere around there, I think, is realistic. And to be, a top 5, top 6 quarterback in the Big Ten is where I expect him.
Let me throw this out there for you. Mystery quarterback, 3,017 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Who was that?
Jake Rudock?
Last 10 years or so.
Shape
nailed it. It was okay. Jake Rudock. Would you take a 2015 Jake Rudock season out of Bryce
Hell
Underwood?
yeah. Are you kidding me? Absolutely you would. And what have there been 2 or 3, right? The 3,000-yard passers in Michigan history in a season, John Navarre and Shea Patterson, and I think Jake Rudock are the 3, if I'm not mistaken. So absolutely you'd take that. And of course, it's probably going to depend on how many games he plays too. If they, if they were to get into the playoff or make the Big Ten championship game, not out of the question, right? I think they're probably picked as about the 4th best team in the Big Ten, maybe 5th by some, although I don't think Indiana or Illinois is going to finish ahead of them. So there's a possibility that he plays a lot more games and he gets more opportunities to throw for more yards too. So, but more than anything, right, ease him in. And I remember, guys, I'll date myself a long, long time ago. And this is, of course, kind of apples and oranges. But when Chuck Long started for the Detroit Lions and everybody was like, man, we got to get him out there. We got to get him out there. You put him out there behind a crappy offensive line, and it kind of seemed to deflate his career a little bit, as compared to had he started behind at an elite program or an elite franchise behind an unbelievable offensive line. Who knows what he could have been. I'm not predicting that this kid's going to lose any confidence or anything like that, but I do remember Devin Gardner getting hit 27 times at Michigan State and thinking, man, he deserves better. So hopefully, guys, this offensive line is going to be a lot better than it was last year. They brought in Juan Castillo. They told Grant Newsom, hey, let's get these guys up to speed. And Grant Newsom has gone on record as to say that these guys have shown incredible improvement this year. Of course, last year we heard some good things in the offseason too. So I'm really, really anxious to see what happens in those first 2 weeks of the season with that offensive line and their ability to pass block.
Yeah, how good the defense is. It'll be good,
Yeah.
But is it next level? Is it elite? Is it top 10? Is it top 15, top 20? Because this could be a really good situation for a quarterback to come into in a different way when you look at it through the lens of that defense is probably going to keep them in every single football game. When you get to the plus 35-yard line, you have a kicker who I think Sharon Moore said the other day made a 68, 69, 70-yard field goal in practice. I would love the exact. I'm surprised he doesn't have it. I'm just Dominic Zavada amazes me. I need to know for a fact that it's 70. So we'll ask him next time we talk to him. But it's just ridiculous. So you have some of an infrastructure there that is really positive. And, they were in pretty much every game last year, pretty deep into pretty much every game. And they won some games that they shouldn't have. They obviously folded and didn't show up in some of the bigger moments at Washington, at Illinois, things like that. But with a better quarterback, they would have done so, and they would have won a hell of a lot of games. So from that lens, he's going to be put in a pretty good situation. There are a lot of worse situations out there that quarterbacks could be in. And, he has the ability to get better and better throughout the year too. So I'm just excited to see what it looks like. There's just been so much talk, and that shows, the excitement that everybody has for this season. But now we get to actually see it at 7:36 p.m. on Saturday night in the corner of Stadium in Maine.